The world tilted when I opened my eyes. A soft breath grazed my ear, warm and deliberate, carrying my name like a secret. Elliot, my heart slammed against my ribs, and I froze, the haze of sleep evaporating as I realized I wasn't alone on the couch. I'd come to my best friend Marcus's house in Portland, Oregon, to crash after a brutal week of finals at Reed College. Marcus and I had been inseparable since freshman year, bonded by late-night study sessions and a shared obsession with obscure indie bands. His family's craftsman-style home in the Alberta Arts District was my second home, complete with creaky floors, mismatched furniture, and the faint smell of cedar from the backyard. I'd sprawled out on their ancient leather couch after lunch, promising Marcus I'd only nap for an hour before we hit up a local open mic night. But now, in the dim glow of late afternoon, it wasn't Marcus beside me. It was his older brother, Theo. Theo, 27, all sharp jawline and quiet intensity, lay inches away, his blue eyes catching the fading sunlight. His blonde curls were messier than usual, like he'd been running his hands through them. He was supposed to be in Seattle working some high-flying tech job, not here whispering my name like it was a prayer. My breath hitched. Theo, what the hell? I managed, my voice cracking. My face burned. I scrambled upright, the couch creaking under me. I wasn't, I stammered, but the lie stuck in my throat. Had I been dreaming of him? Theo, who I'd barely seen in years, who'd always been Marcus's untouchable older brother. Cool, distant, straight, or so I'd thought. Elliot, he said again, sitting up now, his voice low but steady. It's okay. It wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. My pulse raced, not just from the shock but from the way his eyes didn't waver, like he was seeing straight through me. I'd spent years burying the way my stomach flipped whenever Theo was around. The summer barbecues when he'd laugh with Marcus. The rare times he'd ask me about my art projects with genuine curiosity. I was just Marcus's nerdy friend, the bi kid who overthought everything. Theo was Theo. Confident, magnetic, the kind of guy who could have anyone. Why was he looking at me like this? Marcus is upstairs, I blurted, desperate to break the tension. He'll be down any second. Theo's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Marcus is passed out. Too much of Mom's lasagna. He leaned closer, his knee brushing mine, and my brain short-circuited. You didn't answer my question. What question? I croaked, though I knew he hadn't asked one. Not out loud. He tilted his head, studying me. Why were you saying my name? I wanted to disappear. I wanted to lean in. Instead, I stood, my sketchbook sliding off the couch and hitting the floor with a thud. I need air, I muttered, bolting for the back door. The backyard was a small oasis, string lights crisscrossing above a wooden deck, a fire pit surrounded by mismatched chairs. Portland's autumn chill hit me, grounding me as I leaned against the railing. I'd always known I was bi, but I'd never acted on it. Not with guys. Not when every crush felt like a risk, like I was handing someone a piece of me they could break. And Theo? He was a fantasy, not reality. Yet here he was, unraveling me with a single whisper. The door creaked behind me. Theo stepped out, hands in his pockets, his t-shirt clinging to his frame. You're running, he said. Not accusing, just stating a fact. I'm not running, I lied, staring at the fairy lights instead of him. I just needed a second. He stepped closer, stopping just short of touching me. Elliot, I've been gone 2 years. I come back and you're different. You're still you, but... He paused, like he was choosing his words carefully. You're not just Marcus's friend anymore. My heart stuttered. What's that supposed to mean? He exhaled, his breath visible in the cool air. It means I noticed you. Back then. Now. Always. His voice cracked slightly, and that tiny fracture broke something in me. Theo, the guy who had it all together, was nervous. Because of me. I turned to face him, my defenses crumbling. Theo, you're you. You're not supposed to. I gestured vaguely between us, unable to say it. You're not supposed to want me. His hand grazed my arm, tentative but warm. Who says I'm not supposed to? Before I could respond, Marcus's voice boomed from inside. Elliot, you bailing on open mic night or what? Footsteps thudded closer, and Theo stepped back, the moment shattering. I forced a laugh, my chest tight. Coming, I called, but my eyes stayed on Theo. He didn't look away, and that scared me more than anything, because whatever this was, it wasn't just a dream. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake Theo's voice, his touch, the way he'd looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Marcus, oblivious, dragged me to coffee shops and record stores, ranting about his latest music obsession while I nodded absently, my mind replaying that moment on the couch. Theo didn't live in Portland anymore, but he was staying for the week, and every time he was around, the air felt charged, like static before a storm. On Wednesday, Marcus invited me to a family dinner at their house. I almost said no, terrified of facing Theo again, but the thought of seeing him pulled me like a magnet. When I arrived, the dining room was chaos. Marcus's mom, Lena, dishing out roasted vegetables, his dad, Greg, debating craft beer with Theo, and Marcus blasting music from his phone. Theo caught my eye across the table, and my fork nearly slipped from my hand. Elliot, you good? Marcus asked, shoving a roll at me. Yeah, I lied, focusing on my plate, but Theo's presence was a pulse I couldn't ignore. After dinner, Marcus dragged me to the living room for a board game, but Theo lingered in the kitchen, helping Lena clean up. I volunteered to help too, my heart pounding as I carried plates to the sink. You don't have to do that, Theo said quietly, taking a dish from me. Our fingers brushed, and I swear the room tilted again. I want to, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Lena bustled out, leaving us alone, and the silence was deafening. Theo dried a plate, his movements deliberate. You've been avoiding me. I haven't, I said too quickly. I just don't know what this is. He set the plate down, turning to face me. I don't either, but I know I can't stop thinking about you. My breath caught. This was real. Too real. Theo, you're leaving in a few days, and I'm a mess. You don't want this. He stepped closer, his voice fierce. Don't tell me what I want, Elliot. I've spent years pretending I didn't feel this. I'm done pretending. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words died as he reached for my hand, his thumb brushing my knuckles. It was the smallest touch, but it set my skin on fire. Before I could say anything, Marcus burst in, oblivious. Yo, Elliot, you playing or what? I yanked my hand back, my face burning. Yeah, I'm coming, I mumbled, fleeing the kitchen. But Theo's words echoed in my head, and I knew there was no going back. The board game was a blur. Marcus's laughter, the clatter of dice, the teasing jabs from his dad. None of it could drown out the memory of Theo's thumb on my skin. I kept stealing glances at him across the room, where he sat pretending to scroll through his phone. Every time our eyes met, my stomach flipped, like I was falling and flying at the same time. By Friday, I was a wreck. I'd spent 2 sleepless nights sketching in my dorm, trying to pour my confusion into charcoal and paper. My drawings, usually abstract swirls or cityscapes, kept turning into Theo's face. The curve of his jaw, the way his curls caught the light. I tore them up, terrified Marcus would see. Terrified I'd see too much of myself in them. Marcus texted me that afternoon. "Bonfire at the house tonight. You in?" I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. A bonfire meant Theo. It meant another chance to crash into whatever this was, or to run from it. I typed hell yeah before I could overthink it. The backyard was alive when I arrived, string lights glowing, the fire pit crackling under a star-streaked sky. Marcus's friends from his music theory class sprawled across the deck, passing beers and roasting marshmallows. Theo was there, leaning against a chair, talking to a girl with purple hair who laughed too loudly at his jokes. Jealousy twisted in my gut, sharp and unfamiliar. I grabbed a soda and joined Marcus by the fire, trying to act normal. "You're quiet tonight," Marcus said, nudging me. "Finals still kicking your ass?" "Something like that," I muttered, staring into the flames. Theo's laugh carried over, and I hated how much I wanted to be the one making him laugh. An hour later, the crowd thinned, and Marcus disappeared to refill the cooler. I was poking at the fire when Theo sat beside me, his knee brushing mine. "You're avoiding me again," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "I'm not," I said, but my hands shook as I set the stick down. "I'm just trying to figure this out." He leaned closer, the firelight dancing in his eyes. "What's there to figure out, Elliot? I like you. I think you like me." My heart stopped. "You don't even know me," I whispered. "Not really." "I know enough," he said, his voice steady. "I know you're the guy who draws like the world's on fire, who stays up all night talking music with Marcus but never brags about how good you are at it, who looks at me like you're scared but can't look away." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "What if I mess this up? What if you change your mind?" He reached for my hand, hidden by the shadows of the fire pit. "I'm not changing my mind." The world narrowed to his touch, the crackle of the fire, the weight of his words. I wanted to believe him, but fear clawed at me. Fear of what this meant, of what Marcus would think, of what I'd lose if it all fell apart. Before I could say anything, the purple-haired girl called Theo's name, and he squeezed my hand before letting go, standing to join her. I stayed by the fire, my chest aching, wondering if I was brave enough to chase this. The next morning, I woke to a text from Theo. "Meet me at Laurelhurst Park, 10 a.m. No explanation, just the address. I almost didn't go, but at 9:45, I was pulling on my jacket and biking across town, the October air sharp against my face. The park was a riot of color, red and gold leaves blanketing the grass, families tossing frisbees, joggers weaving through the paths. Theo was waiting by the pond, sitting on a bench with 2 coffees in hand. He looked up as I approached, his smile soft but guarded. "Thought you might bail," he said, handing me a coffee. "Almost did," I admitted, sitting beside him. The coffee was black, just how I liked it. He'd remembered. We sat in silence for a moment, watching ducks glide across the water. Then Theo spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm not good at this, Elliot. The whole feelings thing. I've spent years keeping people at arm's length. But with you, it's different." I stared at my coffee, my heart pounding. "Why me?" He laughed, a short, nervous sound. "I don't know. You're real. You don't pretend to be something you're not. And when I saw you on that couch, saying my name, it hit me like a freight train. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I looked at him then, really looked. The confident Theo I'd built up in my head was gone, replaced by someone vulnerable, someone who was taking a risk just like I was. I'm scared, I admitted. I've never not with a guy. Not like this. He nodded like he'd expected it. Me neither. Not really. But I want to try. With you. My breath caught. I wanted to say yes, to leap into whatever this was, but the weight of it, Marcus, my own doubts, the fact that Theo was leaving soon, held me back. What about Seattle? Your job? His jaw tightened. I'm figuring it out. I can work remotely for a while. I need to know if you're in. I looked out at the pond, the water rippling under the morning sun. Every instinct screamed to protect myself, to walk away. But then I thought of Theo's whisper, his hand on mine, the way he made me feel seen. I'm in, I said, my voice barely audible. His smile was like sunlight breaking through clouds. He didn't kiss me, didn't touch me, but the look in his eyes was enough. For now. Saying yes to Theo was like stepping off a cliff. The thrill was electric, but the fear of crashing never left. We didn't tell Marcus, not yet. It felt too fragile, like a spark that could burn out if we exposed it to the world. Instead, we stole moments. A walk through Powell's books where Theo brushed my hand in the stacks. A late-night drive to the coast where we sat on the hood of his car, sharing a blanket and watching the waves crash under the moonlight. But secrets have a way of fraying. Marcus started to notice my distracted silences, the way Theo lingered when I was around. One night, as we played pool in a dive bar downtown, Marcus cornered me. What's up with you, man? You're acting weird. I froze, my cue stick hovering over the table. Just tired. I lied, but my voice was too tight, too defensive. He squinted at me, his brown eyes sharp. Bullshit. You and Theo keep looking at each other like you're sharing some secret. What's going on? My stomach dropped. Nothing's going on, I said, but the words tasted wrong. Marcus didn't push, but the suspicion in his gaze lingered, and I knew we couldn't hide forever. Theo and I met the next day at a coffee shop in the Pearl District, a trendy spot with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. He looked tired, his usual confidence dimmed. Marcus asked me about you, he said, stirring his coffee. Not directly, but he's not stupid. I gripped my mug, the ceramic hot against my palms. What did you say? Nothing yet. He leaned forward, his voice low. But I don't want to lie to him, Elliot. He's my brother. I know, I said, my chest tight. But if we tell him, it could change things. What if he doesn't get it? Theo reached across the table, his hand covering mine for a brief, reckless moment. He'll get it, eventually, but we can't build this on lies. I nodded, but the thought of telling Marcus, of risking our friendship, made my stomach churn. I'd spent years building walls, keeping my feelings for guys locked away because it was safer. Coming out to Marcus last year had been hard enough. But this was personal. This was his brother. That night, Theo invited me to his apartment, a small loft in southeast Portland he was renting for the week. It was the first time we'd been truly alone. No Marcus, no family, just us. The space was sparse. Bare walls, a second-hand couch, a guitar leaning against a corner, but it felt like Theo. He cooked dinner, a surprisingly good pasta with homemade sauce, and we ate on the floor, laughing about nothing. For the first time, I let myself relax, let myself believe this could work. After dinner, we sat on the couch, a movie playing in the background that neither of us watched. Theo's arm was around me, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my shoulder. You're thinking too much, he said, his voice soft. I laughed, but it was shaky. Always do. He turned my face toward his thumb brushing my jaw. Stop thinking for a second, he whispered, and then he kissed me. It was slow at first, tentative, like we were both afraid of breaking something. Then it deepened, and every doubt, every fear, melted under the warmth of his lips. I kissed him back, my hands finding his chest, his heartbeat steady under my palms. When we pulled apart, I was breathless, my forehead resting against his. I'm all in, Elliot, he said, his voice raw. Are you? I nodded, unable to speak. But even in that perfect moment, a shadow lingered. Marcus, the world outside this loft. The fact that Theo's life was in Seattle and mine was here. The next morning, reality crashed in. I woke to a text from Marcus, "We need to talk." Now, my heart sank. I met him at a diner near campus, the kind of place with sticky booths and endless coffee refills. He was already there, his expression unreadable. "Spill it," he said as I slid into the booth. "You and Theo. What's going on?" I stared at the menu, my throat tight. "It's complicated." "Complicated how?" His voice was sharp, but there was hurt there too. "He's my brother, Elliot. You're my best friend. If something's happening, I deserve to know." I took a deep breath, the words heavy. "We're together. Or trying to be." His face froze, then softened, then hardened again. "How long?" "A week," I said. "It's new. We didn't plan it." He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "You didn't plan it? You're sneaking around with my brother? And you didn't think to tell me?" "I was scared," I admitted. "I didn't want to mess this up. You and me." He looked away, his jaw tight. "I'm not mad you're into guys. You know that. But Theo? He's not like you, Elliot. He's got his life together. He's leaving. What happens when he breaks your heart?" The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they echoed my own fears. "I don't know," I said, "but I have to try." Marcus sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I need time, man. This is a lot." He left without another word, and I sat there, the diner's hum fading to nothing. I gained Theo, but I might have lost Marcus, and I didn't know how to fix it. The week unraveled like a loose thread. Marcus stopped texting, his absence a gaping hole in my routine. I'd see him in class, but he'd nod curtly and turn away, his silence louder than any argument. Theo tried to bridge the gap, talking to Marcus alone, but it only made things worse. "He thinks I'm stealing you," Theo told me one night, his voice heavy. "He's not wrong to be protective." I wanted to scream that it wasn't fair. Marcus was my best friend, but Theo was everything else. But guilt gnawed at me. I kept secrets, and now I was paying the price. Theo's last day in Portland loomed like a storm cloud. He'd extended his stay by a week, working remotely, but his boss was pushing for him to return to Seattle. We spent every moment we could together, stealing kisses in empty parking lots, sharing earbuds on late-night walks. But the clock was ticking, and every touch felt like a countdown. On his final night, we drove to Mount Tabor, a park with winding trails and city views. The air was crisp, the skyline glittering below us. We sat on a blanket, my head on his shoulder, his arm around me. "I don't want to go," he said, his voice rough. "But I have to." "I know," I whispered, my throat tight. "What happens now?" He tilted my chin up, his eyes searching mine. "We make it work. Long distance. Visits. Whatever it takes." I wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in. What if it's too hard? What if you meet someone else? He kissed me, fierce and desperate, like he was pouring every answer into it. There's no one else, Elliot. Not for me. We stayed there until the stars blurred, but the ache in my chest didn't fade. I was falling for him hard, and the thought of him leaving felt like losing a piece of myself. The next morning, I helped Theo pack his car. Marcus was at the house, but he stayed upstairs, the distance between us palpable. Lena hugged me goodbye, oblivious to the tension, and Greg clapped Theo on the shoulder, wishing him luck. I stood by the driveway, my hands in my pockets, as Theo loaded the last bag. "Call me when you get to Seattle," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He pulled me into a hug, his lips brushing my ear. "Every day," he promised. Then he was gone, his car disappearing around the corner, and I was alone. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Theo called, texted, sent me playlists and blurry photos of Seattle's skyline. But Marcus's silence was a wound that wouldn't heal. I threw myself into my art, sketching feverishly, but every stroke felt like a confession I couldn't share. A week later, I couldn't take it anymore. I biked to Marcus's house, my heart in my throat. He answered the door, his expression guarded. "What do you want, Elliot?" "To talk," I said. "Please." He let me in, and we sat in the living room, the same couch where this all started. "I'm sorry," I began. "I should have told you from the start. I was scared you'd hate me." "I don't hate you," he said, his voice softer now. I don't get it. Theo's my brother. He's supposed to look out for you, not this." "He does look out for me," I said. "But it's more than that. I love him, Marcus." The words slipped out, raw and true, and Marcus's eyes widened. "Love? You've known him a week." "It's not just a week," I said, my voice shaking. "It's years of knowing him, of wanting him, of being too scared to admit it. I'm not asking you to be okay with it. I'm asking you to not shut me out." He looked away, his hands clenched. "I need time, Elliot. I'm trying." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. I left his house feeling lighter, like I'd laid down a weight I'd been carrying too long. Long distance was harder than I'd imagined. Theo's calls were my lifeline, but the miles between us felt like an ocean. I'd lie awake at night, replaying our moments together, wondering if we could outlast the distance. My art became my outlet. Canvases filled with bold colors, jagged lines, the shape of Theo's smile hidden in every stroke. Marcus and I started talking again. Slowly, awkward lunches turned into late-night gaming sessions, and while it wasn't the same, it was enough. He didn't bring up Theo, and I didn't push. But one day, he looked at me over his coffee and said, "You're different, happier, even with him gone." I smiled, my chest tight. "He makes me feel whole." Marcus nodded, and for the first time, I saw acceptance in his eyes. "Just don't let him hurt you," he said. "I'll kick his ass if he does." I laughed, the sound breaking the tension. "Deal." 3 months later, Theo surprised me with a visit. I was in my dorm, sketching, when he knocked on the door. I opened it, and there he was, his curls damp from the rain, his smile brighter than I remembered. I threw my arms around him, not caring who saw. We spent the weekend tangled in each other, exploring Portland's rainy streets, kissing in alleyways, talking until dawn. On Sunday, he took me to the coast again, to the same spot where we'd watched the waves. The sky was gray, the air sharp with salt, but his hand in mine was warm. "I'm moving back," he said, his voice steady. "I got a job in Portland. Starts next month." I stared at him, my heart racing. You're serious? Dead serious. He pulled me close, his forehead against mine. I want this, Elliot. You. For real. Tears stung my eyes, but I laughed through them. You're insane. For you? Yeah. He kissed me, slow and deep, and for the first time, I let myself believe in forever. That spring, Theo moved into a small apartment near campus. Marcus came to the housewarming, bringing a six-pack and a grudging smile. You're still my brother, he told Theo, then looked at me. And you're still my best friend. Just don't make out in front of me. Okay? We laughed, and the weight of the past months lifted. Theo and I weren't perfect. There were fights, doubts, moments when fear crept back in. But we faced them together, building something real, something lasting. One night, as we lay in his bed, the city humming outside, Theo whispered my name again, just like that first day. Elliot, he said, his voice soft. I'm glad you woke up. I smiled, my hand finding his in the dark. Me too. And in that moment, I knew. Love wasn't just the spark, the thrill, the whisper. It was the courage to choose it, every day, no matter the cost. It was the courage to wake up,